Well, good morning. Today we're going to find out about efforts to build a new animal welfare shelter in Marquette County and get an update on the TV6 Healthy campaign and talk about an event with special meaning for me regarding Negaunee basketball from 60 years ago. It all starts right now.
From TV6, this is the Ryan Report. Now here's your host, Don Ryan.
There's a dedicated group in Marquette County who work together in an organization called UPAWS, that's UPAWS, whose mission is to improve the quality of life and welfare for domestic animals and provide a safe haven while finding lifelong homes for the animals in their care. For a number of years, they've dreamed and worked to establish a new shelter, and now those dreams are getting close to reality. Joining us to talk about that and more this morning is Cassava, Executive Director of the Upper Peninsula Animal Welfare Shelter. Corey, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you with us. I know you've worked for a number of nonprofit organizations. How did you get involved with UPAWS?
Well, I've been an animal rescuer pretty much my whole adult life, starting with my first rescue dog back in 1998. So really it's one of those things where when you work for nonprofits pretty much consistently, you do keep your eye out for the other nonprofits, those ones that are doing something big, those ones that are doing things that really well and really align with your personal goals, your hopes and dreams for what our community can look like in the future. So when UPAWS had an opening, I really did just jump at it just because it lines up so much with what my family and I are very passionate about.
So this is not just a job but a labor of love for you.
It is exactly that. I've got a couple of UPAWS alum myself, and all of my pets have been rescues. So when you have that passion, it really makes it great to be able to work with an organization to put it to use.
And this organization has been at it for quite a while now, haven't they?
40 years, well, a little more than 40. So the Marquette County Humane Society, as it was originally called, was started back in 1975, essentially just as a housing facility for stray animals. Animal welfare was much different back then. There wasn't a whole lot of adoptions and different things that we do today. It was pretty much just a place to hold a dog while it was lost.
And I think they used to call them the dog pounds. And
Exactly.
They were kind of operated by the cities or counties.
Lots of them are operated by municipalities. And in our case, and then now some of them are operated by independent nonprofits, which is what UPAWS is.
Okay.
You know, not tax funded or anything like that. Really just dedicated as an independent agency to doing things, not just housing an animal, but adopting them back out, really saving their lives.
And as these operations go, this is a pretty good size operation, isn't it?
It is. We're considered a medium-sized shelter when it comes to the state of Michigan. We see about 1,500 animals on average come through our door a year. So that puts us in that medium-sized shelter, but what we're really proud about is that we consistently save about 98% of them. Back when we were the Marquette County Humane Society, when animal welfare was really just so much different than it is now, what we saw was a euthanasia rate of about 60 to 65%. Wow. So when we made the transition to try to become a no-kill shelter and the UPAWS that we are today, back in 2006, which is really only 10 years ago, we went from essentially saving about 40% of the animals that came through our door to 98. So
amazing.
That is what we're proud of, and that is what allows us to have some bigger dreams for the future.
And you've been recognized, not you, but the shelter has been recognized for this too, hasn't it?
We've been recognized through the state of Michigan. We also spoke at, one of our board members spoke at a conference in Washington, D.C., and then regularly featured on a number of national websites just for the work that we do and the innovative programs that we can come up with similar to hospice programs. So if we have a dog that comes in surrendered or an animal that comes in surrendered, that is kind of in an end-of-life type situation, but still has a really good quality of life, we'll place them in a foster home until that time. There's no reason to go back to where we were, which was just saying, well, it's an unsavable animal, so let's take care of it now. We do everything we can humanly possible to get them placed into home and give them a really good quality of life.
And you actually have more than dogs and cats there too, don't you?
We do. We have dogs, cats, rabbits, guinea pigs. We had tropical conures, which are a parrot type animal. We had this summer 2 stray boa constrictors. So you never know what you're going to get when you walk into the shelter. The only thing we don't help with is wildlife, and in those cases we direct people directly to the DNR.
And just to emphasize again, you're not paid for this by the government or by any agency.
We're not. We're an independent nonprofit, so we don't get any funding through tax purposes from the county, and that was one of the reasons that we changed our name from the Marquette County Humane Society to the Upper Peninsula Animal Welfare Shelter, as people assumed that we were an agency of the county, an animal control or municipal pound, which we're not. And then other people assumed that we got some sort of funding from the Humane Society on a national level, which we don't. We are 100% funded by the adoptions, donations. We do a lot of fundraising. That's why you see our canisters all over, just to keep our doors open and our animals healthy.
And you also rely a lot on volunteers, don't you?
We do. We have a very active volunteer program, which is great with animals in that people are passionate about animals, they're passionate about animals. So we have about 100 to 150 volunteers in our system. We've got a great core group of volunteers every one of our fundraising events. So if you look at Strut Your Mutt charity walk, if you look up for Tails, our golf outing, or our gala Cause for Paws, those are run by volunteers. That's not run by staff at the shelter. So that's a whole lot of time and effort that people put in for our cause. It really is a passion.
And you also welcome visitors to the shelter.
We do. Anytime. We're open. What a lot of people don't know is that we're actually there 7 days a week from about 8:30 in the morning to at least 5 o'clock at night, sometimes 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night. So we do provide that direct care. We're walking dogs multiple times a day. We're caring for the animals. We're giving them their medications as they need it. But we are also open to the public 7 days a week, noon to 4 every day, except we have late hours on Thursday. So we're actually there until 6:30.
Okay. Now, let's introduce the subject at least before we go to a break, that you're looking to develop a new shelter.
We are.
First of all, why is this necessary?
The shelter that we have was built in 1978. There was an addition added onto it in 1988, but that building itself is just not working anymore. At one point in time, there was a fire. It leaks in the summertime. There's not adequate parking. It's very difficult for people with mobility issues to be able to make it in there. It's just an old building. It's also surrounded by rock and bluff and swamp. So we don't even have the opportunity to add to anything there. We need something brand new. We looked at all of those aspects. Right now we have cats or dogs in every location, depending on, at the beginning of the year we took in something like 90 animals, trying to find locations for them, trying to find foster programs for them. So it's not good for the animals, it's not good for the people or the volunteers or the staff that work there. And what it is, it's also not really good for the community. Our community deserves so much more that we'll be able to offer in a larger facility when it comes to teaching kids about humane education and animal empathy, working with organizations to talk about how to identify signs of neglect or abuse in animals, any number of things.
We'll talk more about your plans for the future in just a couple of minutes. Back with more on the Ryan Report after we take this break. This morning we're talking with Corey Cassava about the Animal Welfare Shelter. You have a unique name for your campaign, but I'm not sure we can. Well, I guess we have to spell it out. It's the Possibilities Campaign, but it's spelled P-A-W.
Correct, yep. It's the Imagine the Possibilities, and it's actually a campaign for what we're calling an animal community center. And one of the biggest, the reason we changed that is one of the biggest changes in animal welfare over the years is that we really found that it can't just be a shelter taking care of the animals that come into it. We need our friends and neighbors to adopt. We need our friends and neighbors to feel comfortable surrendering their animals if they need, if situations change in their lives, and doing anything from donating directly to the vet care of an animal to the shelter as a whole. It really takes a community to be able to save all the animals, and so that's why in this case we're talking about the Imagine the Possibilities campaign for an animal community center, and it really just talks to a whole lot of other programs that we're going to be able to provide that we just can't right now.
Okay, and so I assume this will really be a nicer place for volunteers to work, but also for visitors to come in and spend some time with the animals?
Yeah, we do a whole lot of work to make sure that when you come into the shelter as it stands right now, that it doesn't smell a whole lot like the cats that might be there or the dogs in the back. And that's part of the reason why we're there very early in the morning to clean, so that when you come in, you're really picturing that animal in your home. You're looking at the animal's personality. You're looking at what maybe your needs are, and you're not getting distracted by things like smells and sights and sounds that might make it a little bit less desirable to have an animal in your home.
And the idea of creating a shelter has really been kind of on the drawing board, you might say, for several years at least.
If you talk to some of my board members right now, they'll say they started talking about it back in, in the 80s and in the 90s. At that point in time, we just had the expansion. But in real cases for a few years now, and part of that is because as an animal shelter, we're held to some pretty high standards. We're grandfathered into a lot of the clauses that we have right now, but when we come to, we've been in this facility for 40 years and we want to be in the new facility forever after this. So we have to take into consideration the fact that no other building in history has changed as much as an animal shelter. It used to just be bricks and fences that you'd throw a dog in and maybe check on it every once in a while, or a cat in. Now we have to look at ways to make sure that the anxiety in animals isn't there, that people that come in have the opportunity to see the true personality of that animal, so that when they take them home they know what they're getting, and there's less likely returns. And then anything from infection control. So unfortunately, back in the days, as did many humane societies, if there was a case of upper respiratory amongst cats, there wasn't a way to treat them. They didn't think there was a way to treat them, so they were euthanized quite largely. In this case, if there's upper respiratory, we can maintain the air control in the new building. Right now we do provide vaccines, we provide medication. They're not euthanized due to that, but it's difficult for them to get as healthy as they need to be in order to get adopted.
Now, you have what seems like a large amount of money you're looking for, $3.7 million.
Yep.
But you're off to a good start, aren't you?
We are, and actually I'll note that that's actually the 3.7, part of that 2 years in planning that we've had right now is original estimates came in at just shy of $6 million, between $5.5 and $6 million, and we as an organization said that's a little, I mean, we have a lot to do and a lot that we want to do, but we're not willing to compromise on the care of the animal, but we think that there's definitely a way to bring that down. So the primary way that we did that was working with local contractors in order to bring that down by 40%. So the cost to build the building itself is $3.5 million, with an additional, $200,000 to equip it. But what people have to take into consideration is it's going to be built more like a clinic than a commercial building. We'll be located in Sands Township, so there's no fire hydrant there. If there's a fire and we have living animals in our shelter 24/7, that we have to factor in things like underground water holding tanks for fire suppression. We have to talk about pretty advanced airflow capabilities. So.
And you've already raised over $2 million.
Oh yeah, we're just actually at about 2.2 million. So we're about 60% there. We will break ground when we hit about 80%, and then it'll be 10 months until we can locate. So we're really only 20% shy. We're looking at trying to raise about $600,000 to $700,000 now before we break ground, and then raise the remaining $700,000 to $800,000 through our pledges. We have multi-year pledges, or when we're open.
And so for people out there watching this morning, if they're interested, what can they do?
They can go to our website. All of our information is on there, and that is upaz.org. They can find us on Facebook. We've got a pretty active Facebook following. But there is right on our website a button that says Our Plans for a New Shelter. On that, you'll get the specifics for why we need a new shelter, what the new shelter is going to look like, some of the programs that we want to implement, and ways that you can contribute, ways that you can give or volunteer, or even provide some information. We are also having a community forum on February 28th at 6 in Marquette. That information's on there as well. So if you want to come and actually talk to people and ask your questions, that's a great opportunity to do that as well.
And of course, if they want to send a check, they'd probably accept that.
Absolutely. All of that information is on there. They can give online. They can send a check in the mail. They can call me directly. My number's on there, and I'll talk to them about different levels of gifts that maybe they might be looking at, and different ways that they can give.
Sounds like an exciting project.
It is.
I always admire the dedication of the people who work, in this cause.
Yeah. I've been in nonprofits for a long time, but UPAWS, the passion that's behind UPAWS is really second to none. Just the people who are willing to give their time, energy, and funds to be able to make sure that we're here doing the best that we can for the animals in our community.
Corey, thanks for coming in this morning.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
I'll be back to talk about getting healthy in just a couple of minutes. Well, we have a new effort underway this year to provide information to our viewers about living a healthy lifestyle. It will continue throughout this year on TV6 and Fox UP. It's simply called the Get Healthy campaign. Joining us this morning to tell us more about this campaign is TV6 News Director Steve Asplund. Steve, you all set to get healthy?
I'm trying. I still have a little cold right now.
Are you going to play the role of a doctor for the next year?
I don't play one on TV or in real life.
Okay. Give us an overview of what this campaign is about.
Well, it's basically a campaign that runs the entire year that's going to try to focus on stories that get people healthy, get people into an active lifestyle, talk about conditions, illnesses, certain prevention tips they can do to make themselves healthier, have a longer, happier, healthier life in the end.
Why did TV6 decide to get involved in this campaign?
You know, healthcare today is a huge issue from the federal level right on down to the individual. It's something everybody talks about when you get a job nowadays. It's like, what kind of healthcare coverage do you have? It's something that's on the tip of everyone's tongue as far as healthcare. It takes up a lot of people's money and resources, time and effort to see doctors or whatever. So it's kind of that type of thing that we hope to help people understand what's going on, some of the conditions that are prevalent in the UP, and some of the conditions in the UP that are here, like diabetes is a real issue in the Upper Michigan, just because of the ethnic backgrounds.
Okay, well, will this focus on specific health issues, or is it pretty broad?
I mean, we're starting out broad. It's a far-reaching topic that's going to encompass everything. I mean, we're going everything from you know, hospitals, clinics, medical care facilities, all the way down to conditions, illnesses, to prevention tips, healthy eating, what you can do to be active. We want to cover everything possible, and we're always looking for ideas and things that we can look at that we may not be aware of, that we can inform the public about, something that maybe somebody's doing that's working for them over in Baraga that we don't know about here in Marquette.
We'll probably have some public service commercials and things too, but
right.
Much of this will be on the newscast.
Exactly. I mean, we're going to do stories on a semi-regular basis, well, hopefully at least one a week, if not more. We already do a Your Health Matters segments on Mondays on our News Tonight program. So that'll be in addition to what we're going to do with the Get Healthy campaign.
How do you go about deciding what kind of stories you're going to cover?
It's what people are talking about. It's what people tell us about. It's more along the lines of, you know, this is an issue that's been in the news, maybe, or something on the national or local level. Maybe it's a hospital or a clinic that's told us about a program or a new piece of equipment or technology they're looking at. So it's along those lines that we'll be looking at stories that come to us through any means possible, including people or viewers' comments and Facebook emails or letters.
And I assume it's not just about sickness, but also about ways to live healthy lives, healthy, active lives.
Oh yeah, and that's it, exactly. What you just said is active, because a lot of people's medical issues come as a result of being inactive. And if you can get people up and moving, doing something on a regular basis, no matter how small it is, if it's walking or if it's something more like going to the gym, we're going to explore and look at all those options.
And this will continue throughout the whole year?
Yes, it started in January and we'll run through the end of December in regards to what people can do and hit those special days and topics that come across with holidays and healthy eating along those lines.
And hopefully by the end of this year, you and I and all the viewers out there watching will be healthier.
Hopefully that's the goal.
Okay. Thanks for coming in and talking about it this morning.
Thank you, Don.
Okay. I'm going to share some memories with you about 60 years ago. That's coming up in just 2 minutes. Well, like a number of other communities in Upper Michigan, Negaunee has high school basketball in its DNA. That's why a little over a week ago, I had the chance to participate in a special celebration as that community took time to remember and recognize a special achievement on the basketball court. If ever a squad deserved the title Cinderella Team, it was the 1957 Negaunee Miners, although I'm not sure they would agree with that Cinderella title. The team finished the season with 11 wins and 5 losses, which isn't a bad record, but 2 of those defeats came at the hands of arch-rival Ishpeming, and they faced the Hematites in the finals of a district tournament. This time, however, Negaunee would chalk up a 48-41 victory, and after regional wins over Ironwood and Stevenson, the Miners, led by Coach Jack Taylor, were on their way downstate. They probably had their toughest game in the state tournament in the quarterfinals, where they edged out Big Rapids 65-64 And then after a semifinal win over Lansing Resurrection, they were in the state finals against a great Harper Woods team. But again, the team from Negaunee would prevail and went home the state Class B champs after winning that game 68-66. It was a great victory for the Miners, and 60 years later, it was a great celebration as the community gathered to recognize the team's accomplishments in 1957. That was about 7 months before the Mackinac Bridge were opened for traffic. But as Paul Harvey would say, let me tell you the rest of the story. I was asked to participate in that special celebration not because of my exploits on the basketball court, but behind the microphone. That was because with my broadcast partner Chip Tassin, I broadcast all of the tournament games, including that championship game on WJPD, which at the time was Ishpeming's only radio station and the home of the Miners and Hematite radio broadcasts. And for me personally, here's the best part. You know, when I was a kid, probably 8 or 9 years old, I really wanted to be a radio announcer. And when I was 11 years old, I can remember gathering in front of the big old floor model radio at my grandmother's house on a March afternoon in 1950, waiting for a special broadcast. At that time, WJPD had a great play-by-play sportscaster named Paul Crowley. And on that March afternoon in 1950, I heard him come on the air and say, "Good afternoon, everyone. This is Paul Crowley from Jennison Fieldhouse in East Lansing, where today the Ishpeming Hematites face Grand Rapids Godwin High for the state Class B basketball championship." I remember thinking at the time, if someday I could do that, it would just be the greatest thing ever. And so, on March 23rd, 1957, I was able to come on the radio and say, "Good afternoon, everyone. This is Don Ryan at Jennison Fieldhouse in East Lansing, where today the Negaunee Miners meet Harper Woods for the state Class B basketball championship." I still get goosebumps when I think about it. Thanks, 1957 Negaunee basketball team. You're the ones who made it happen. I'll be back in a minute. Almost time to wrap it up for another week. Thanks to Corey Cassava for joining us to talk about UPA's plans for a new animal welfare shelter. We wish them well as fundraising for that project continues. And also thanks to Steve Asplin for coming in to talk about TV6's goal to help us all get healthy this year. Certainly a worthwhile undertaking. Remember, for the latest news anytime, check out UpperMichiganSource.com. You can also find this show at that same internet address. The Today Show is coming up next. Hope you can stay around for that and that you can join us again next Sunday morning.